Last year, I sold my business to a private equity firm in a multi-million dollar deal, a business that I had started from my 200 square foot apartment in Boston. But the craziest part of my story, if you haven't heard it yet, is actually what happened on the night before closing, the night before I was set to receive the biggest payday of my life. But before we can get to that, I have to kind of walk you through the different steps so that you appreciate the gravity of it. And if you haven't heard my story yet, this is a good time for me to kind of fill you in on A to Z, everything that happened from me being a broke engineer, inspecting manholes, to making 8.9 million, and then eventually selling my business to a private equity firm. Something I never thought was going to happen, something that was never on my bingo card for my life. I think everyone starts from the matrix, and so that's where I'll start here. And this is going to be a bit of a longer video. I'm going to try to do this all in one cut. I'm just going to speak to you as if we're sitting in the room together. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll understand my story and you'll be able to have a few takeaways for your own story, whether you're building a business, whether you have a business, or whether you want to do something else entirely. I think there's value here. And, I'm happy to share my story from A to Z, from top to bottom. So when I graduated college, I had a chemical engineering degree that I didn't know what to do with. I literally didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I think a lot of people are there. But the thing that struck me the most was how cracked up engineering was to me for years, for like 15 years. It was like, all right, we're going to be an engineer. We're going to do cool projects. We're going to build stuff. We're going to work with our hands. I was like, yeah, I love hands-on stuff. Like, let's do that. Let's go that route. And so when I graduated with a degree, the first thing that I was tasked with doing was going out and inspecting manholes. I drove a little robot like in the sewer, through the sewer pipes, and then reviewed the footage and found cracks in the manholes and then reported those cracks to some other business to be repaired. And so and I had to go in the manholes too to set the robot up. So I was literally in the manhole doing my job. And so that was not kind of what was sold to me. I felt like I had been scammed a little bit. So I was like, I got to find another thing to do. And I need to find a way to push my life in a direction where I want it to go, and to start being responsible for my own decisions and do things that I want to do and take back control of my life, which I had thought I had lost at that point. Like, when you think you're doing everything right, when you think you're taking all the steps that you need to take, getting a good job, getting a good education, and then eventually you hit a spot in the road where you're like, this is what you're working for, but it's not what I thought it was going to be. It's pretty aggravating. And especially if you think like it's going to take another 15 years for me to turn this into something I want to do. And so at that point, I had realized what I wanted to do was two things. First, find something that I love to do, because I really didn't have anything I loved to do, which sounds depressing, but that's kind of where I was at. And second, I wanted to make a lot of money doing it, because it's really crazy and interesting actually how these companies will give you, like, they have calculated the exact dollar amount that they need to pay you to keep you bouncing from zero back up every time you get paid. They like know exactly how much you need to just barely survive, and they give you that. And so these starting salaries, even like with a job like an engineer, can be very, very tough to live a meaningful life on. And I found myself in that position as well. I was getting paid 57 and change a year back in 2018. And, at the time, that was like considered a higher starting salary. But I was like, if this is a high starting salary, like, I don't even want to know what life is like on like a mid to low starting salary. And so my takeaway there was like, I want to make more money than I've ever made in my life. I want to find something scalable that I love to do that makes me a lot of money. And at the time, I was like, it felt unnatural because I was trained to not want money. It's like society kind of ingrains in you that it's bad to want money. It's bad to want material things. And I kind of had to break that belief in order to, get where I am today. And so I determined that like I said, two things. I want to find something that I love doing, and I want to make a lot of money so that I can do the things that I want. And so I tried so many different businesses. I tried drop shipping. Everyone's tried drop shipping, right? I don't think there's a person that has a successful business that hasn't tried drop shipping. It's like the first thing. So I tried that. I tried like Amazon affiliates. I tried different like engineering businesses. I tried making a free energy machine out of a magnet and copper wire, which if you're an engineer, you're gonna think I'm an idiot now. I had an engineering degree and I thought free energy could be created from magnets and copper wire. And so if that's enough for you and you want to log off this video, I don't blame you. But that was something I tried. I was gonna like mass produce them and sell them. So I tried a ton of different things, and at the end of the day, none of them were really working. But I had always had like a love for the stock market, and I just had never had money to trade the stock market. And so what I started doing was I saw trading as like my path to freedom, and I thought it was like a hackable system where I could figure it out and trade my way up to a couple $1,000,000 and then ride off into the sunset. So I started saving a little bit from each paycheck and put it into a Robinhood account and day trading. And so I would be on my phone day trading options from a manhole, like literally in the manhole. I remember one day I was up $1,000 on a Snapchat call while I was on site, and I was like talking to my supervisor, and I just could not like stop checking my phone. I was like up 1,000, up 1,100, oh back down to up 900, and like I could not pay attention to him. And it's at that moment where I was like, I feel the rush and the scalability of this and not this. And as I was talking to him, I was like, I just realized in my mind, like, I gotta find a way out of engineering. I have to find a way because this is not something I want to do forever. And so after I had started saving more money, funding the trading account, I blew so many accounts. And that was like the hole in the bottom of my bucket for the longest time. Like I would keep filling it up, and then I would keep making boneheaded trades, and the bucket would just empty. And so I continuously tried to develop my strategy to a point where it was somewhat working, and I was making somewhat small amounts of money. And that's when I decided to start an Instagram page, and I at that time I called it Robinhood Stock Watch. Completely disregarded any copyright laws. Just Robinhood Stock Watch. I think it was like 374 or some like number, some generic account, and the profile picture was the Robinhood logo. So what I would do is I would get up at 4 before my work. I had to be at work at 7, so I would get up at 4 and I would make a daily post every day to post on Instagram, and I would post like my market insights, like the trades that I was taking, whether they were good or not at that point, right? Because a lot of them were not. And so I would post like, oh yeah, I'm looking at Snapchat calls, I'm looking at Netflix calls, I'm looking at S&P 500. Look, I was a big like market doomer back then because I had a problem with the world and the system. So I was like, I was always betting on like the S&P 500 to just fall off a cliff, and it was funny. If you look at some of those posts, it was comical. Some of the takes that I had, but eventually I did that so consistently that I started gaining a following around the insights that I was sharing. Some good stuff, some bad stuff, but ultimately people were following and people were like waiting for the next update every day. And so that was cool. That was really cool because I had never had people like not relying on me, but I had never had people anticipating what I was going to do like that. And eventually it got to the point where that account had a couple thousand followers. So I'm doing my engineering job. I'm building my trading skills, my trading account, up, down, up, down, up, down. And then I'm also building this, call it a community of people that were interested in what I was doing, what I was saying at the same time. So I had kind of three things going on. And eventually what I thought of one day while I was at a job site, I was up in New Hampshire on the Merrimack River. They were laying a pipe underneath the river. So like not through the water, but like underneath in the like soil, in the earth under the river. And my job was to sit in the car and watch and take notes. So I was like, my God, like I gotta find something else to do. So I started a community. So I started a Slack group for everyone that was following my Instagram page, and it was free at the time. And I was like, maybe I can like put a price tag on this at some point, make it into a business. It was free. And so what I lacked in concrete trading skills at the point, I made up with the power of community. And so I think for a lot of young entrepreneurs who don't have like any ridiculous skills yet that they can go take to the bank and build a business around, I think I would recommend to you all to just build a community. So I started building this community, and I would put like a story up every day and say, come join my my Slack group, my Slack community. And first it was free, and then I put a $9 a month price tag on it. And so I just busted my ass to every single day make like 3 in-depth market analysis videos on what I saw going on in the market and post them in the Slack group. I just went all into providing value to these people, and they really appreciated it. Whether my opinions were correct or not, they really appreciated it. And we built a really strong community. And for the first time, when I had people giving me daily feedback and saying like I love you, or you changed, like you made, like I made $1,000 today because of something you posted. That was like when the switch in my head flipped, and I was like, this might be it. This might be the thing that I go all in on. And so, this whole time I had not put my face behind it. Nobody knew it was Ben Zogby that was running this. It was just the guy that is behind this account has made a Slack group, and you subscribe to it. When I made the videos, it was my voice, but there was no like picture. Loom didn't exist back then, so it was just a screen recording with audio. So I hadn't like told anyone about this. I hadn't told my parents. I hadn't told my friends. So that's when I decided to rebrand from Robinhood Stockwatch 357 or whatever the number was to High Strike. And I can't tell you how I came up with the name of High Strike. I don't know. I think I wrote a bunch of compound words on a paper, and then I picked one. High Strike. High meaning good, valuable. Strike meaning like strike price. And also a cool word for like physical strike. I don't know. Happened. That's what it's called. Deal with it. So I'd rebranded to High Strike, and I put on my personal Instagram page. I was like, hey, like I built this community called High Strike. And it was like the first time where I was coming out and saying like, oh, I actually built a business, or like a thing. Like it wasn't even a business. And so, and now every time I would like go hang out with friends, not real friends, but like people that I knew, I would get oh, we got the big entrepreneur in the house, or like Mr. Moneybags. And it was always this like kind of offhand comments about like, oh, look at this guy. And I mean, that was back in the point where like I still cared about what people think and what people said. But it's just funny to look back on. And I remember in my head, I was like, I'm going to show him, like, I'll show you. And so then it became about like proving these people wrong. It was like, oh, you think this is a joke now? Now I'm going to take it even more seriously. And so I started building. I kept posting insights. I made sure to prioritize a couple things. I prioritized content like outside of the Slack group. So like Instagram content, branched it to YouTube a little bit. And then I also prioritized the value I was giving the group and the engagement I gave the group. I put my name behind it. They knew it was me. And so eventually, the Instagram page grew pretty big. I grew it to about 20,000 followers. And then the group had a couple thousand people in it, pretty good conversion rate. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put a $9 price tag on this. I'm going to see, are people willing to pay $9? And like literally everyone was willing to pay $9. And they were like, one guy said to me, I can't believe you didn't do this like 3 months ago when you first started. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I just at that point had something against like charging people. And that was one of the biggest things. Like if you want to build something, if you want to like make money, you can't be afraid to ask people for money. It was kind of one of my things I was brought up with. It was like, we don't ask people how much they make, and we don't like talk about money, and we don't ask about money. And so I always treated it as this like kind of like concept to like skirt around. And then one day I like was like, all right, I'm just gonna ask for money. And I did it, and I felt the response, the overwhelmingly good response. And I was like, this is easy. I'm gonna keep asking for money. So I kept asking for money. I kept growing the account. And eventually I transitioned from a $9 a month group to just $397 or $497 upfront payment or annual payment. And so that just exploded the business. And so instead of people subscribing for $9 a month, I was probably making a couple thousand a month at that point. The conversion from the couple thousand members I had was maybe a couple hundred, and they were each paying $9. I don't really remember. It wasn't like life-changing money though. But when I moved to $397 up front, it was like, my God, how much that adds up. And especially for me, who was making 57 and change a year. And my Christmas bonus was $1,500. And I remember one day I made that in like 3 hours because I posted a story on Instagram. So I was like, this is 100% it. This is what I need to do. And for a lot of people, it's like the hardest part is making your first $10,000. And so when I felt myself kind of getting to that threshold where I was like, this is working, this is 100% working, and I got the validation from the concept, that is the feeling that propelled me to eventually, where I would go and where I would take the business. And so I was making enough money to kind of pay for all the things that I wanted. I could hang out with friends. I could go out to bars. I drank back then. I don't drink anymore, but I would be able to do basically whatever I want on the weekends, on the weekdays. I could travel. I could go drive and take a hike on the weekends, do different things. And so what I started realizing was the amount of time that I was dedicating to this job. And so at work, I was still in my engineering job. At work, I was letting all sorts of stuff slide. And I was like, I'm going to get fired because I was behind on projects. I was letting stuff slide. And this might be a little bit controversial for some of you guys, but to me, I was like, I don't care. Like, if I get fired, I get fired. My 9-to-5 job has sold me this image of what I was going to be as an engineer, and it was so false that I don't care what like they think or what they do. Like, I'm going to milk my 9-to-5 salary for as long as I can and funnel it all into the business, funnel it all into the trading account. And so projects were slipping. I was like going on site and like just working in my car. I brought my laptop and used my phone as a hotspot in the car to build the business and to trade. And so eventually I was like, my job isn't getting in the way. I'm sorry. Eventually I was like, my trading and my business aren't getting in the way of my job. The job is getting in the way of the business, because at that point I was making like $15K a month on just the business, on lifetime sales for this membership. And so that was when October 2019, I was like, I'm going to quit. I'm going to do it. Remember, I was talking with my dad, my mom, and my Uncle Tom at my cousin's house in South Boston. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to quit. And my Uncle Tom was like, do it. Because he was kind of following me from day one. And my parents too, they knew what was going on from day one. And so they were all like, yeah, I think you should do it. Because that was like a new concept to my parents. They hadn't really, I don't seen that. And so they were a little bit tentative to get on board, which I would have been the same way. But I was like, I'm going to do it. And so they were like, yeah, just do it. So I quit. And the first thing that I did was I just took a trip. I just went to Chicago because I'd never been to Chicago. It was kind of weird, but it was just the freedom thing. I was like, I can do whatever I want now. I'm making money from my laptop. I'm just going to go to Chicago. So went to Chicago, explored in the middle of winter, froze my ass off, didn't bring a jacket. I don't know, I was still 23 years old. I didn't know what was going on in my head at that point. And one of the things that I did when I first started making money, I want to make sure I get this in the story, but before we hired any traders, one of the first things that I did when I started making money was I bought a car. I bought a Corvette C7, and a lot of people are gonna be like, oh, what an idiot. But I that was for me. It wasn't for anyone else. It wasn't for you. It was for me, because I thought that when I got into that car every day to drive to wherever I went, it would remind me of the fact that I had built this empire and the fact that I could do whatever I want. And it motivated me every single day. And so the ROI for me was worth it. I paid cash for it, didn't like take out a financing loan for it or anything like that. But it was a big part of what helped me continue to build. Anyway, that's a smaller piece of the story. So all of a sudden I had a real business on my hands. I had expenses, I had profit, I had revenue, I had expenses, and that's not something I had ever dealt with before. And so it was really hard for me to start investing in other people and building a team, because that was the next step that I knew I needed to do if I was going to take this to $1 million enterprise, which I knew it had the legs to do. So the first hire I made was a content guy, and he was like 18 years old at the time. Excellent content guy. Didn't really have a ton of experience yet, but I could tell that he was going to be good at what he did. So we did a few just like one-off shoots, and then after we got some good results, I was like full-time, signed a contract, and officially hired my first employee, or contractor, I guess. And so we just went to town, me and him, just making content every day, like videos like this. I invested in high quality content, and the business just exploded. Like, I think we went from 10, 15K a month before I quit my job, and to after I quit my job, I hired the content guy and really went it full time in it. I went like 40K, I think 76K, and then like 3 months in a row we were like 99K, and I was like, can we just crack the 100K mark, because this is getting a little ridiculous. It actually is kind of nuts. But it was like 99.8, 99.7, 99.9, and then the next month we did like 120. So we were doing really well. We were scaling really well, just me and one employee. And so at that point, I was like, well, what's the next step? How do we make this bigger? And at that point, the limiting factor on the business was my trading experience, because sure, this whole time I was trading and I was making some money trading, but I would see all these other traders and it's like, they're making so much more. They're doing so much better. And so I was like, if I'm able to have our business show the kind of profits that these guys are showing, then I just know that would convert so much better. So what I started doing was I would start hiring these guys. And some of them came from the group that I created. Some of them came from external. But we hired professional traders to trade and to produce the content for the group. And so I transitioned from the trading guy who made some money here, lost some money here, into just this business owner that had a passion for trading, that hired traders that were really good at what they did. And so that helped the business even more. We cracked 200K a few months in a row. And then the biggest month we ever had was just under 300K. Just on the same business model, with plugging the traders in, professional traders behind the paywall, and then making content in front of the paywall to get people to come in and pay. And so at this point, we had a really big business. It was probably the biggest trading business at the time, because this was fairly new. We were fairly quick to the punch, and a lot of people might think that, well, you just got lucky, you're in the right spot at the right time. But honestly, I think that I kind of made my own luck in this situation. Like, sure, the dice kind of rolled in my favor, but I gave myself the opportunity, and I gave the business the opportunity to be in the right spot when it mattered most. And so during COVID, 2020, 2021, everyone wanted to start trading. And we had already existed for 2 years at that point. And so it was kind of just the net that caught all these people that wanted to trade. The stimulus checks just hit. So most of them just went right into our account, because they would just get the stimulus check and sign up for the membership. So that was great. And we just kept rolling. And then one day I heard of someone exiting their company for $1 million. Maybe it was two. And so I thought, well, I'm making a couple 100K a month. What could I get for my business? So I went to this company called Empire Flippers, and I got a free valuation. And the valuation was like $6 million. So like, oh my God, I could make $6 million right now. And so my whole thought was like, how do I get this listed? How do I find a buyer? How do I sell this thing? So I had a call with one of their onboarding reps, and the guy was like, yeah, sure. Like, we'll check your business out. We'll see what's going on. We'll see if we can sell it for you. And he got back to me. He I guess went to his board or something, and he got back to me. He was like, yeah, we don't have the buyer pool to sell your business. So that was pretty disheartening. And this was in 2021. It's pretty disheartening. So I was like, well, I guess this business just isn't sellable. Too bad. So I thought at that point I was going to have to just run the business forever. So we kept expanding our team. We kept expanding. We experimented with some ads. We did other experiments, and then finally we had a really good recurring revenue model that we switched to, where instead of paying $397 or $497 up front, you'd pay $99 a month to get access to. We went live every day. So we transitioned to more of a live streaming company where our traders would live stream and show their trades in real time and give tips and helpful insights as the camera was rolling, which really helped. And so I didn't understand that that was the transition that I needed to make my business sellable. I just thought it wasn't sellable. I thought I'd have to be running this forever. And so at that point, we had like a $6 billion valuation, million with an M, sorry, it sounded like I said billion, but $6 million valuation on Empire Flippers. But I didn't know it was sellable. And so I just didn't even try. And, as we grew, we had growing pains. We had people leave. We had people we had to let people go. We had any of the growing pains that you're going to get with a normal business. And eventually we kind of reached a point where we topped out, and we had a bunch of subscribers. We had a couple thousand subscribers, but we weren't really getting a ton more, or churn was equivalent to new people coming in. So our revenue was kind of flatlining. And meanwhile, I was investing in all these different growth methods. I was trying to build an app. We wanted to build an app to upsell subscriptions to. We were paying traders a lot because they were good at what they did. And so eventually we started investing so much in the business that we were cutting into the profit margin. And so instead of bringing in 200K a month, we were bringing in maybe 50, 60. And yes, that's still good money, but I just didn't we weren't making the same money as we used to be. So we were investing all this money into the app. And the app, I think I spent $290,000 on building an app, which you can literally do for $200 now. And I didn't know Bubble existed, like no code software. So I hired this Indian development team that just milked us for every cent of profit they could have. And then one day we woke up and the app was like half done over 6 months. And it was like, what are we doing investing in this app? So we cut the project and we went back to the regular subscription model. But it was a big learning experience for me. It was a ton of money spent. It's a tax write-off. But anyway, it was time to kind of take some chips off the table. And I wanted to try to sell my business again because I had seen all these other people exiting. And so unfortunately, when I went to list this time, the valuation was a lot lower because, of all the money we had spent, and the profit margin was so much lower. Even though we were making 50, 60K a month, the valuation still came out to 1.5 million, which sounds great. But it was pretty disheartening to know that it was at 6 and now it was at 1.5. Mind you, I still cash flowed significantly from the business and actually made more money running the business than I did selling. Most entrepreneurs make more money selling the business than they do running it. It was vice versa for me. But so, okay, 1.5, that's fine. That'll allow me to kind of have as much freedom as I want on top of the money I'd already made. And so I found a different company, Flippa, which was happy to list my business at 1.5. And they were excited about it. And I got on an onboarding call with my broker, Fiona. Fiona, if you're watching this, hi. It was a great experience. And I finally was like, okay, maybe this can sell. Because for the entire time, just because I had gotten rejected by the first broker, the entire time I was like, this business model cannot be sold. And I think a lot of people that have personal brands or like e-businesses or like e-learning businesses or any sort of like info product business think they can't sell their business. And sometimes that's the case, but most of the time it's not the case. So I thought it was the case, but when I listed the business at 1.5, it got a ton of interest. And this is where the story really starts to heat up because I was getting like 7-figure offers for the business from multiple people all across the world. I had competitors bidding on my business. I had private equity funds bidding on my business. And so I woke up one day with 3 7-figure offers. And I went to my dad. I was like, what do I do? A couple mentors to me, like, what do I do? Do I keep bidding them against each other? Do I just pick the highest offer and go with it? do I keep my business forever? Because I started to think like, well, if they're going to pay me this much for it, maybe it's like worth keeping. It like had the like reverse psychology impact on me. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll see, if we can bid them against each other and get a higher bid purchase price. So we had a bidding war going on, and we ended up listing for 1.5, and the offers were coming in at like 1.6, 1.7, 1.8. So I went with the 1.8, and I signed an LOI. So after signing the LOI, you go into what's called due diligence. And that's a period of time, according to the LOI, it was supposed to be 120 days. Sometimes it's 90, sometimes it's 60, sometimes it's 30. But this one was 120 days where the buyer's supposed to come in and check your business, like top to bottom, do an audit of your business, make sure they know what they're buying, make sure they know the risks associated with it. So offer in hand, signed, due diligence starts. Now, throughout due diligence, my broker's getting all sorts of other offers, but I'm not allowed to talk to them because I signed exclusivity in the initial LOI. So offers are coming in. I can't look at them. I can't talk to them. And it's taking a long time. We signed 120 days, and I think we're probably 150 days in. And I'm just like, is this going to happen or not? And so I like to operate as if I'm being deceived at every point. So I never let my guard down. I'm always vigilant. So they're telling me, yes, this is going to happen. This is going to close. They're telling me, yes, we're on track to close. It's just taking a little while. And so I was like, well, when are we going to close? And I didn't really get a solid answer. And so that started to make me think like maybe this isn't going to happen. And that was a really tough mentality because I was working 2 jobs at this point. I was running my business, trying to keep my business alive, afloat. I had people inside the business that were complaining, like wanting raises because they knew I was selling, and just like not doing their job because they thought it was going to be over. And so I had to deal with all of that. And I also had to deal with doing due diligence, following up with the buyers. And so I was doing 2 jobs at once, and I was losing my mind because I was like, I have a business I need to keep up, and I have a business I need to sell. And I didn't know which was going to happen. I didn't know whether I was going to have to just eat my business and stick with it for the rest of my life, or the deal was going to go through. So that uncertainty was like, I had sleepless nights. I had tons of stress. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't eating well. And so eventually I was just like, are we going to do this or not? And I got the same answer. I was like, yeah, we're going to do it. Like, we're just taking a little while. And so what I did was I terminated the exclusivity portion of the LOI. And I said, I'm no longer exclusive with you, because we were past the 180 days. It's like, we're no longer exclusive. And I started getting other bids. I started talking to another buyer. And this other buyer, he offered me 1.2 in cash and 600,000. I would have to take out a Stripe loan. And this is where it gets really interesting. The offer was they're going to pay me 1.2 in cash, and then the remaining part of the purchase price, 600, I would go to Stripe and I would take out a loan from Stripe, and I would just walk away with that cash, and they'd eat the payments on the loan. So I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. That's an interesting approach. And I was like, let me like reach out to Stripe and like talk to them about it. And they were like, no, don't do that. Like, don't tell Stripe you're doing this. So like, oh, you're going to do this without telling Stripe. So I talked to my dad, I talked to my lawyer, a couple mentors, and they were like, what are you doing? Why are you entertaining this offer? So I was like, I walked away from that one. And that was like intermittent after I had terminated the exclusivity, and I started talking to the other buyers. Another offer came in for a little bit less in cash, but a higher earnout on the backside. Declined that. Or I was entertaining it, but I ended up declining it. And so effectively what I did was, by entertaining these other offers, I gave the buyers an ultimatum, and we ended up like, they were like, we're going to close, we're going to do it. And so we ended up closing, because the night before we were set to close, I was like, we have other offers and we're going to go with them if we don't close. And so I put a fire underneath them, and we ended up doing it. And I got the wire, and it was a great feeling. It was a ridiculous feeling, like going from A to Z, all the way from launching the paid community, or the free community, to making it paid, to changing the business model multiple times. We changed the business model multiple times, which is amazing. And each time the business got more legitimate, the business got more reach, better feedback. And so it was really cool to kind of see a business grow like that. And obviously there were growing pains. There were, things that I probably would have done differently if I had the chance again. But ultimately, we came out on top, and we sold the business for 7 figures. And that's a crazy feeling, and it's something that not everyone can say. And so if you're watching this and you're trying to start a business, or you're in the process of starting a business, like my biggest advice to you is, like, don't be afraid to be flexible, one. And two is, the business and you have to come first. Like, why did you start this business? If you define your why early on, then it becomes so much simpler. And like I said at the beginning of this video, for me, my why was, I wanted to do something I loved and make a ton of money. And so at every point in the process, if either of those 2 boxes weren't checked, then I got rid of whatever thing or person was causing that box to not be unchecked. And that ruffled feathers, but I don't care, because ultimately I got the job done when it mattered. And this business was for me from day one. It was for me, and I got the job done, came out on top. And so you kind of got to become a monster and then learn to tame it, versus be timid and let people walk all over you. And fortunately, it resulted in me being able to sell my business for 1.8 million and make a lot more than that on the cash flow itself. And so it's been a really long journey. And so that was a year ago. And since then, I've kind of been basically doing whatever I want. I coach wrestling now. I coach at WPI, where I went to college, and I wrestled at WPI. I've been traveling a ton, and I've just started getting back into making content like this. And so if you're on your journey and you want to see more of this content, I'd invite you to like and subscribe, and leave a comment to let me know what you thought of the video. And I hope you got a lot out of it, because although I didn't script this and I kind of just went off the cuff, I still think it's very valuable to a lot of you guys who are building, and to hear my story. And I'll do more structured videos in the future, but I think it's important to kind of just walk you through A to Z, step by step, how the business was formed, and everything raw that happened from A to Z, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's not all like la la land fairy tale. Building a business is fun. It's not. Sometimes it's not fun. But if you can understand that and just eat it, then you're going to be a lot more prepared for the path ahead. And so if you're building a business, keep at it. Keep at it. Keep trying things. Keep iterating. Find the thing that makes you 10K and then roll with it. That's my biggest advice as well. Just find something that makes money, and then just triple down on it and do what works. All right. So once again, my name is Ben Zogby. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it if you made it to the end right now, and I'll see you guys in the next video.